Good evening and welcome to Source Material Live. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And oh boy, Wrestlemania, fighting is our life, pump it up. That's right, it's Wrestlemania week here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, and me and the Podsmen, who I'll be bringing on shortly, will be reviewing all 106 days of WrestleMania content being put out by the WWE. 45 days of NXT, 67 days of WrestleMania, Hall of Fames. It's just going to take forever to get through it all. But we're kicking things off because tonight is actually WrestleMania 37 Night 1 here in Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium. And to celebrate that, we thought we'd take a look at one of the many wrestling comics that are out there. We are talking the independent book Invasion From Planet Wrestletopia.
Yeah.
And to help me do that, of course, are the Podsmen. First, from our Canadian office, ladies and gentlemen, it's Chris Bailey. How do you do, sir?
Brother, the steel cage is around the earth, and I'm ready. Ready to battle for that galactic championship, brother. Let me tell you something.
We're gonna hang it from a ladder. We're all gonna. Then we're gonna fall off that ladder, 100 times trying to get it. Speaking of falling off ladders, there he is, standing in a corner, aloof, with his hands in his pocket, not interested in any of this. Ladies and gentlemen, he's freshly squeezed orange Chris Sheehan. How do you do, sir?
Hey, how are you? Very, very excited to finally be talking about this book here. I'm not sure if I don't want to bury the lead here, but we're joined by a member of the creative team of this book here, and I'm not sure if he remembers, but actually, I doubt he remembers. This was actually supposed to be an episode of Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Treadmill. We were sent the comps for this issue back in April of 2019. Reggie and I both read it. We both enjoyed it very much, but we wanted to wait until there were a couple of issues down so we could do a more fully fleshed out episode on this story. However, in the interim, Reggie had fallen ill and a lot of stuff had gone down, so we were unable to do it. And I'm so happy that we're finally able to discuss this, and I'm doing it with the Podsmen. So this is a good thing. This is a very good thing.
Yeah, I'm happy we can do that for you. And speaking of which, this is a first here, at least for me, on Source Material. I know this was once upon a time Jesse Starcher's show, and I think he might have actually had some creators on in the past. But much like Something to Wrestle With and 83 Weeks and all that, no guest needed on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. But when we have one, it's exciting, and we actually have the creator of this book, Ed Kuehnel. Ed, how are you, man?
I'm doing really, really good. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, I'm one of the writers of the series, which we finally finished here at 6 issues, and the other, my tag team partner, Matt Enton, would be here, but he and his lovely valet/wife, Lane, had their first child just a couple weeks ago, and they are adjusting, let's say. So he would have loved to have been here. I give Matt a shout out, and obviously we worked with some really, really talented artists, quite a few artists on the series overall, but we finished up with Kendall Good, who is the artist who did a lot of the WWE comics for Boom. So it was really great to work with him. A colorist is Gio Butler, and the letterer Sal Cipriano, Slippery Sal Cipriano. So thanks so much for having me, guys.
Oh, it's great to have you here. You know, I just got finished reading all 6 issues before we started recording today, so it's real fresh in my mind. One of the things that becomes very apparent, even from starting with issue number 1, Ed, is you're clearly a wrestling fan, and you have to be around our age. We're all in our 40s.
Okay.
And it's clear you were a wrestling fan from back in like the Hogan and Savage era. I can tell that from some of the fonts and artwork that you're doing here. Your lead in this book is clearly an analog of Savage, Randy Savage. Yeah. So where did you get the idea for this book?
So like as you mentioned, Matt and I are both wrestling fans. I'm a little older than Matt, so I'm 48, and I was born and raised in Portland, so Portland's one of those places where we just happen to have our own sort of NWA territory.
I was gonna say, wasn't that where Roddy Piper made his bones?
That's
in
the
that
Don
area?
Owens, yeah.
Yeah, Roddy Piper, I think, it wasn't the first place he ever wrestled, but it was where I think he's really sort of broke through. And according to legend, the promoter, Don Owens, had, called some of the bigger promoters and said, "You gotta book this kid. He's going to be great. He's too big for Portland." And Roddy Piper lived in the area up until his death, but he lived here for a really long time. And it was just really funny. I guess we're not to go off on too big a tangent here, but he was so grateful to the promoter Don Owens and to the territory that even when he was a huge star with the WWF, as it was called at the time, if they would come to Portland, he would not wrestle. He would just tell Vince McMahon, "I'm not doing it." And he not only that, he would go one step further in that while he was under contract with Vince McMahon, he would come to Portland and wrestle on cards that were being promoted by Don Owens of Pacific.
That's
Northwest.
right, in the the dying days of Owens' territory. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
I saw him wrestle Buddy Rose. But Don Owens would put on these weird promotion, these weird big promotions at the Portland Memorial Coliseum, which is where the Portland Trailblazers of the NBA used to play at the time. Sorry, that's one of my devices. And so Don Owens wrestling extravaganza, and Ric Flair would come to town and wrestle Dusty Rhodes, and you'd have AWA wrestlers on the card, and you're like, what the heck's going on? There's NWA, AWA, and then all of a sudden Roddy Piper would show up and wrestle. I saw him wrestle Playboy Buddy Rose, and. But anyway, so I was obsessed with wrestling as a kid, and then even going into Hulkamania. So you had the NWA territories, then you got cable, so you could see Ric Flair down in Georgia Championship Wrestling and the WWF on network TV, and was completely obsessed with it. And I did, I think as I got older, I sort of fell off of it. I don't actively follow it. Well, that's completely true. I sort of follow it, through like Twitter and social media, and I kind of, I know who the wrestlers are, and I know, sort of what's going on. But I have an enormous amount of affection and love for it. I'm not a hugely nostalgic person, but wrestling to me was everything as a kid, and those were kind of like my superheroes. I got into it when I was young enough. You're really young, and you just, there's nothing about it that seems choreographed or predetermined, right? Like these are real fights with real people with masks, and they're breathing fire and spitting green mist, and they're jumping off things, and they're indestructible, and there's good guys and bad guys, and it's still real to me, damn it, kind of a
yes.
And okay, so Matt, a little younger, but so he had really passionate about wrestling, but he got to kind of witness more of the Attitude Era stuff than I ever did. I kind of missed out on a lot of that. We both actually, for a long time, we have worked in the video game industry as writers, and we met actually at a studio. Working on, we worked on games together, and then even after we left, we've been freelance writers for a long time, and have worked on a lot of games together. And we did get to a point where we're like, hey, it'd be fun to do our own stuff. We started writing like screenplays, and they were really fun to do, like to write. And then you're done, and we even had like a manager or two, and it's like nobody wants to read them. Nobody cares. Like the parents don't want to read them. Nobody cares about a screenplay, right? It's not interesting to read. And we did come up with, we came up with this idea for Wrestletopia, and we did write it up as a screenplay, and it wasn't, great, but we loved that story so much that we came up with, and it was just started with, what if there was a planet of wrestlers and their whole life revolved around wrestling, and they decided like who the president was by, 2 out of 3 falls match, or it's just like the post guy delivers the mail might hit you on the head with a chair if you piss him off. And then it became like, well, why would they invade Earth? And it was like, well, what if somebody on Earth cut a promo on TV that somehow really pissed them off, and it went into space, because it was live television or whatever, and they intercept the signal, and it took off from there. So that's Rock and Roll Rory Landell, the protagonist, who he pointed out as kind of this amalgam of all these different wrestlers, and definitely Savage is in there. Superstar Billy Graham was one guy that we really loved. And to wrap that up, so then really a long time went by, and we're busy with our careers, and I just don't want this story to die on the vine. It doesn't sit well with me that it only exists as a screenplay that no one will ever read or care about or make into a movie, right? And so it really was looking at how we could put it out there in the world, and comic books was the answer, because it was like, well, we can't make a movie or a video game, but we don't have the money for that, but we could pay artists. Possibly pay professional artists to illustrate this thing, and it did take some time, but we did it. Like, we made 6 issues, and I told Matt, I'm like, anything if the best thing to come out of this is that the story exists in the world in a format that people can read. If we just have it on like Amazon and that's it, and 500 people read it. In our lifetime before we die, I'm like, then I'm happy. That's something, right? Like, the story exists. Obviously, we're hoping to, we're hoping to get it to as big an audience as we can, but that's it. That was sort of the reasoning behind it, and it was our love of wrestling that gave birth to the idea of Wrestletopia. And
I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned that this started out as a screenplay, because my first question in my head, I'm like, I need to ask this guy when we have him on, is, has anyone tried to license this into a movie? Has anyone tried to adapt this? So it's funny that's how it actually started as a screenplay.
No, so I mentioned the screenwriting stuff. It was kind of interesting. Like, Matt and I wrote like some comedies, and off the strength of one of them, we did end up with a manager for a time, and they were kind of interested in that stuff. Wrestletopia was just something we did, and then we showed it to that guy, and they were like, yeah, I don't know. And then like, even later we had a different manager, and it was kind of the same thing. She was like, why don't you write like some, she had some suggestions on what we should write, so she might show it to people, and we said, hey, we've got this Wrestletopia thing, and she was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe not, maybe, and it just no, it's obviously no.
There's 900 million streaming services out there, all hungry for content, and they're remaking everything from Fatal Attraction to Flashdance to SpongeBob. Yeah. How NBC Universal hasn't picked this up to throw this on Peacock, I'll never know.
Now, I will say that...
Oh, yeah. This is built for a video game. Like, this seems like a Nintendo 8-bit platform, perfect, seamless NES pro wrestling style of game. This is magic waiting to happen here. I would buy the action figures for this.
Yeah, Matt would love that. Our background is video games, right? And I really enjoy writing for video games. In fact, the screenwriting stuff, it was fun, but pretty quickly we're like, we could write these screenplays for free and have no one read them, or we could keep writing video games for money and just get at each other. Like, let's just do video games for money. And so some of these conversations were I think, even it was quite a while ago. So I think it was before we had all these streaming service, this explosion of streaming outlets and all these things. But we'll see. We are going to do a Kickstarter May 11th. Like I said, the series is done, but we're going to put a trade in print or hopefully put a trade in print with this Kickstarter. And then who knows? And we will actually, there'll be a Kickstarter exclusive edition, like a hardcover people can get if they want something exclusive. And then there'll also be a soft cover where we'll knock on wood, if the Kickstarter is successful, we'll print this soft cover edition, and we'll print some extra copies to put in some comic book stores. So if all goes well, the soft cover trade should be in some comic book stores. And who knows? I would. If anyone wants to make action figures or movies, just reach out. We're pretty.
So yeah, we're all big wrestling fans here. Myself and Chris Bailey and Chris Sheehan, we review all the WWE wrestling shows, and then Bailey and I will do a lot of the AEW, Impact, and this past week, as a matter of fact, MLW, Never Say Never. So a lot of wrestling here. Sheehan, you're an old school wrestling fan. Just give me 50 words. Your fandom. Like I said, we're all around the same age. You and I actually grew up in the same area, so I'll kind of set you up here. I know we both grew up on the Hogan era WWF.
Absolutely, yeah. I discovered it through my father had taped Saturday Night's Main Event, and I caught him watching it the next day and watched it with him and just totally fell for it. It was before WrestleMania 3, and we had friends of the family who had one of those. Back in the 80s, you didn't have those little satellite dishes that just sat on the side of your house. You had the one that you had to rent a lot to fit it in. And they had one of those, and you can get Japanese television stations if you really wanted to, and they got WrestleMania 3 and they taped it, and I remember seeing it on the top of their VCR. It was just a tape that they taped at their house. It said WrestleMania 3 on it. I could not believe that somebody had WrestleMania 3 in their house, and watched it, and I mean. You can't do much better than WrestleMania 3 when you're 6 or 7 years old. I mean, it was just the spectacle of it, the pageantry of it. It was just amazing, and I've been hooked ever since. I think right now is probably the nadir of my fandom. This is the lowest that I've been invested in the industry as a whole, WWE and everything else. I just don't think it'll ever get back to what it could have been had it not gone the way it did. So I'm happy to read something like this that actually has such a love for the industry, and isn't so many times when I feel when a comic or a television show or something tries to take on professional wrestling, it's always with a side wink. It's this is dumb, right? I didn't get that from this book at all. All I got from this book was love for the industry, for the silliness, for the pageantry, for all of it. It didn't make me feel dumb for being a fan of wrestling, where I feel like so many adaptations of the industry are just hey guys, this is dumb, right? Wink, wink, wink. We're smarter than this, wink. Didn't get that here, and I really, really appreciate that. It made me feel like a kid again.
It is the best... I think I wrote this up. Maybe it might be one of the trades, but it is the best theater or entertainment known to mankind, and that is
absolutely
devised. And I can prove it. Any of us can prove it. And it's well, boy, that's a pretty big claim. How can you prove it? And all you need is an anecdote, and the one that I think is the handiest. And I won't go through the whole story, but there's this anecdote, and there's a lot of stories like these that you can find, but there is an anecdote. I want to say it was the '60s, and there was a heel wrestler who this was very common at the time. He was a Hawaiian wrestler portraying a Japanese wrestler, right? And this wasn't terribly long after World War II, so they're playing on those tensions, those post World War II tensions, right? So he's a heel. He's a Hawaiian wrestler, but he's portraying a Japanese wrestler, and he's got a heel gimmick, kind of an anti-American gimmick, right? And he goes to the ring, right? let's see. The guy's name was let's see, what was his? Oh yeah, Wanatabi, right? It was a forgive me for a minute. His name was Wanatabi, but he wrestled under the moniker Tojo Yamamoto. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So the anecdote, and maybe you know this, but he goes to like Boaz, Alabama, and he's coming to the ring, and of course he's a heel and he's anti-America, so you can imagine the reaction he's getting from Boaz, Alabama, as he goes to the ring. Picks up the microphone and he tells people, he says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Pearl Harbor. I am very sorry. In broken English, right? And he's like, crying. Well, the audience, he turns the audience, right? They go from just hating this guy, all this heat, as they call it, to like feeling sorry for him. Like they turn, And but he's not finished, okay? So he says, I'm very sorry about Pearl Harbor because I wish we had bombed Boaz, Alabama.
Well done.
And the crowd reportedly freaking insane, right? Like they went nuts. Like it just the balls on this guy. So you can tell somebody, you can say, look, like, will you tell me what play or what opera or what movie or what novel had you going from hating someone's guts to feeling sorry for them to wanting to kill them in less than like 2 minutes, right?
Man, and you know what? The stakes were high too. I mean, you're talking about, especially early '80s, maybe even stretched into the mid '80s before Sports Illustrated blew the lid off of pro wrestling, brother. You know what I mean? These guys were risking their life every single time that they would enter a ring. And you talked about Roddy Piper and, his Portland days. And, this guy was a fire starter. And he was one of those guys that would come to the ring and, people were throwing crap at him, trying to stab the guy. And it's just, epic what these guys went through just to draw heat and to make a living. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Bobby the Brain Heenan in his biography or autobiography, I forget the name, but it was really good. He talks about how people would sometimes get like shot, like you get done. Like sometimes the noise would be so loud, and people would have these little zip guns or whatever they were, and wrestlers would get shot at, or sometimes even shot. And the Iron Sheik, as late as, WrestleMania in the 80s, Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov apparently had to be snuck out of arenas hiding in the back of an ambulance because, they were so anti-American. We wanted to kill them, right?
It's similar to us, Ed, when we do a WWE podcast. We really got to lay low for a little while after our reviews.
You guys talk about NLW for a while to get the people calm down. I'm grateful to wrestling for a couple of reasons. It's just all the crazy shit that they gave us, right? Like that anecdote is one, and then how stuff like the Shockmaster, like where would that ever happen? Anywhere else, and it just all and
what
just,
a hee-haw moment in wrestling that was.
It was just a gift, right? And I would buy these wrestling magazines. I was obsessed with wrestling magazines. I'd buy them whenever a new one hit the stand. I'd buy it, and it had I look at them now, and they're hilarious. They had heel columnists, and it was just like I'm reading every word as a kid, and I'm like, it's the news.
Eddie Elmer and PWI, yeah, he used to be a so great.
And I also do have that. I don't say this about much stuff, like I said, but the wrestling really was probably one of those things as a kid that kind of like it was a refuge for me, right? Like it really was a place for me to get lost and forget whatever else was going on, and really just it. There's very few things I could say this about. Probably video games was another, but it was just it was one of those things that I could get lost in, and it maybe kept me sane is probably a good way to say it. I owe a lot to this crazy entertainment form, even if I don't actively, if I'm not actively watching it, I'll always love it and be grateful to it.
All right, let's start talking about now. Your first issue of this digital comic came out. It looks like May 1st of 2019. Go ahead, Ed, and give us kind of a once-over of... I'm so happy to have someone else to do this for me now. Go ahead and give me a plot synopsis here of issue number 1. Tell us what happens in this book, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll rinse and repeat for each issue, okay?
I will say that it's technically, because we were with a small press publisher for a little while, and so we reissued them, but technically it's 2017, so if I can't remember anything, that's why. So, no. So yeah, issue 17, it sets things up. It's a 32-pager because Matt and I didn't know how to plan comic books well. But it starts off with a fun cold open where we see a Wrestletopian in his spaceship, and he's kind of monitoring space, his little territory of space, and he picks up what he calls a mighty interesting signal. He picks up a TV signal that intrigues him. We go back in time, and the whole story starts sort of the 80s, and wrestling is still a regional affair. And we're introduced to the protagonist, rock and roll Rory Landell, when he's pretty young. And it's the eve of his promotion's biggest pay-per-view, maybe their first pay-per-view. Pay-per-view is pretty new. And he's been told that he is going to win the promotion's world title. But at the last second, our promoter, his name is Dick Drazen. I'll give you 2 guesses to who he's, standing for. But the promoter at the last minute changes his mind.
Ed Hurd.
There you go. It's Sam Munchkin. So Rory, this is the impetus for Rory to get really pissed and go off script during his promo, and basically, and he says, look, I don't care about the world championship belt. It means nothing to me because I am the galactic champion of the universe. And so he's saying this on live television. He's declaring himself the galactic champion of the planet. And then he walks off. He walks out, actually, and no-shows the main event of this pay-per-view. But the real damage is done with the promo, which goes out into space. Of course, that takes a long time. So in the 15 years or so where the signal's bouncing around the universe, we fast forward to the 90s, and this is where the rest of the story really takes place, is more that Attitude Era, late 90s type of wrestling. And but Rory is he is well off the map. Him and his manager Don Wong, his best friend, sort of mentor, father figure, they're not doing so well. He's wrestling in casinos and doing it poorly. And we see him, so at the end of this issue, really hit rock bottom. I mean, he's just hit the end of the road, even for a wrestler. Him and Don Wong part ways, just actually as the TV signal finally hits, Planet Wrestletopia, as we saw in sort of the cold open, and the word reaches the one true galactic champion, Manifest Destiny, who's super pissed that this guy, this chump on Earth, would dare sort of declare himself to be the world champ. So we get the feeling that, we get the feeling that he's not going to let this stand. So, and then we have some fun bonus content that I will point out is each single issue does have some exclusive bonus content that won't be in the trade, because the trade will have its own bonus content. But that's the end. That takes us to the end of issue 1.
So I got to ask before I'm gonna let Bailey and Sheehan kind of give their thoughts here, but I do want to ask one question. The idea of the message being picked up by an alien civilization out in the universe, and them completely misunderstanding it, and it going, that's clearly a declaration of war. We must go, and we will meet this challenge. That is a classic sci-fi trope. What specifically, where specifically were you getting that from? Like, what was in your mind when you were like, you know what, I saw this thing, or read this thing, and this is there, and I'm going to use that. What was the inspiration?
You know, it's funny, like you said, it is such a trope that I honestly could not point to like one movie or book where I'm like, aha, that's that. It feels like a trope that we've seen a million times. So I just thought it would, it would be convenient in our case, right? Because we need Wrestletopia to notice our Earth and notice, our protagonist declaring himself Galactic Champ. But we also liked. I mean, it was fun that it was a trope. It was fun to kind of use that trope in regards to wrestling and alien wrestlers. It is, like I said, we stole it from somewhere. I just don't know.
I didn't want to say steal. I was trying to be nice. All right, so I'll just say this, and then I'll let the other two fellas in here. I love this first issue. I love that especially. That's why I had to bring it up first. I love the idea of, he's just pissed. Your lead, Randy. Rory Landell. He's just pissed, and he doesn't like having to give up his belt, and so he's just going to go into business for himself. Like, that's also a classic wrestling thing. You're not going to screw me, I'll screw you. And it's also like a very dramatic hero thing. Our hero always starting off at the lowest point possible, and so it's like, the tables are turning on him, and so he says, okay, well, I'm not gonna go out like a sucker. I'm gonna turn the tables and do my thing. And so that's all there. That's all you've invested a lot of very familiar hero tropes into Rory, and I love the idea of him doing this promo, and then the promo gets picked up by aliens, and they're like, what the hell, man? We need to get him. But of course it's space, so it takes years for that to happen, and he has all of this time, as we'll see in the upcoming issues, to fall off the rails. Let me go to you first, Sheehan. What did you think about this first issue here?
Oh, it was instantly grabbed me. I really, really enjoyed it here. So many familiar things that we all know, love, and tolerate about the wrestling business here, just all coming to the fore. I love that Rory was inspired by a pizza box, the Galactic Pizza, and he fashions that into his new title belt here. It gave me I don't know if this was intentional, but it gave me shades of the Shane Douglas NWA promo where he threw down the NWA title back in '94 or so. Just like I don't need your belt, I have my own title. So well done, and I love that it was picked up by the aliens here, who have their own galactic champion, who saw this as maybe stepping on their toes a little bit. Very creative way to just amp up this conflict, and very, very good first issue.
Very Ric Flair, circa him coming over to the WWE. No, I'm the real world champion.
There you go.
Very much. Right. Bailey, what'd you think?
Oh, I loved it. I love the fact that we get to see Rory's decline. So you get to see him working in casinos. You get to see a lot of the tropes that I was used to growing up with. So we started out with the wrestling bear, which I really, really love. So as a kid, I remember in Canada they had a touring organization that went around, and they brought Gentle Ben the wrestling bear. And I'll never forget. So they would always bring someone from the crowd to paw around with the bear inside the ring. Now, we had a very prolific hillbilly family that lived in our hometown called the Lethbridges, and they were well known as lumberjacks and very tough. So, of course, the first person in the crowd that everybody wanted was one of the Lethbridges to come in and take on Gentle Ben. Now, the idea was, the ref would go, paw around and, get Gentle Ben will throw you down, just take a fall, and, we'll call it a night. That's basically the whole ordeal, and everybody would cheer Gentle Ben as he was victorious. However, the tides changed when the bear went on its ass, and, we had to pry one of the Lethbridges off poor Gentle Ben. So that brought back a lot of fun memories for me. I really liked when Rory is working the independents. Now he's in the casino, he's drinking in the background, and the artist renders him with a little bit of beef. So he's lost that tone, his celebrity tone. So he's now drawn with a little bit of a gut. He's got the black tights, the darkened hair and a bit more of a beard. Classic downfall when you talk about some of these wrestlers who show up in these bars, which was great. So yeah, you know what? Overall, fantastic issue, and I love that he fought a little person in one of his matches. So extra seedy, loved it.
I failed to mention, so Cody, there's a wrestling bear in it for people who are interested in, if that puts this over the top for somebody to want to check out. There's a wrestling bear in it, and I think my favorite part of Kodiak Jack, the bear, is that he actually wins a belt. Like there's a scene where he wins a belt, which I find just personally, like I love that. And finally a bear is given a belt, given a strap, right? Like the booking decision, and then there's the poor wrestler who had to drop it's a minor belt, but still, I mean, you lost a belt to an animal. That's and then there is, as you said, so Rory's in a casino and he wrestles Mini Macho, who is a wrestler with dwarfism, a Mexican wrestler, a really talented wrestler. And it was interesting. He's probably the one character that, we did all this, planning and writing the stories before we got into, like describing panels and things. But Mini Macho is probably the one character we didn't really have any plans for. And then, we just decided at kind of last minute, we're like, man, we love Mini Macho. We got to keep him in the mix. So we'll see more of Mini Macho after issue 1.
Is there anything more classic wrestling history than working bears and midgets?
It is from, its origins are from the circus. Apparently that's what historians could tell us, is that there was the circus in Europe, and of course, then it came to America. But you had these strongmen contests and boxing and wrestling contests in the circus, and people would gamble on them. And it didn't take long for circus promoters to decide, hey, people are gambling. We could probably make more money if we knew who was going to win, And apparently, it came out of that. So, so you have giants. We still have to this day. We have giants, and we have wrestlers with dwarfism, and we have we don't have
acrobats. We have middle school acrobats.
We have strongmen. We have giants. We don't have bears as much anymore, but
I don't know if you've seen Braun Strowman.
The animals are frowned upon now that we've left the 80s. It's sad.
It was a thing, even up probably to the 70s at least, to wrestle a bear. Crazy.
Did you ever see The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
Oh, yeah. I maybe even just super quick. We may have been talking. So we have been on. Like I mentioned that we kind of wrote this as a screenplay originally, and it may have been even slightly before that movie came out, although I'm not positive. I want to say we started talking about this as a story, 2000, like we found ourselves unemployed and we were working on scripts, and it might have been, like 2007 that we were writing treatments and things. But, it was a great movie. And it definitely has, Rock and Roll Roy Lindell definitely has, some similarities to that.
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, he clearly is cribbing here from some aspects of The Wrestler. That was one of the things that I picked up on. That's why I knew, I can't wait to talk to you about this, because, I know this is a guy who not only grew up watching wrestling, but knows his other, knows wrestling films and stuff like that. Clearly he's seen a bunch of this stuff.
There's got to be some of that in there for sure. And I mentioned before, superstar Billy Graham and his whole story was. There's a DVD sort of mini documentary that WWE put out based on his story, and we may have read his book. I think I read his book as well, and those are big influences.
Isn't it crazy how like a quick change in the timeline and the absence of injuries, and instead of Hogan and Savage, we would get Superstar Billy Graham and Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, Superstar Billy Graham was like ahead of his time. It was just too soon. And I guess Vince McMahon Jr. did say in the doc that had he been in charge instead of his father at that particular time, he's like he would have been all in on Graham to keep him as the champ instead of
I think but he just like Ventura, like his career got cut short with injuries, didn't it?
I think so, yes, and I think he's pretty honest about this, but part of it was he was doing a lot of steroids and he's suffering from the side effects of that and some other addiction problems, and so yes, an injury, and then that maybe tied into or led to some of the physical injuries too that kept him from wrestling.
Yep. All right, let's move on to issue number 2. Tell us about what happens in issue number 2.
Okay. Well, issue number 2,
which came out, by the way, and this one says May 15th of 2019.
Yeah.
An odd release schedule here.
Yeah. It's a kind of a fictional schedule, if it's according to the comic book copyright dates or whatever. But so I remember like issue number 2, Matt and I are feeling pretty confident, and we're like, okay, we'll get this 24 pages, and we felt like, okay, we've got a lot of good story to tell and a good place to start and end. But we start with a kind of a cool flashback of Rory as a kid, and can see how he's a second generation wrestler, and see that maybe he didn't have it so good back then. But then we quickly he sort of wakes up, and as we said in issue 1, him and his manager, mentor, friend Don Wong had a bitter parting. He's on foot, so he just crawls into this cantina in this tiny town in Arizona, and that's it. And so Matt and I think we love the idea that when Earth is invaded by alien wrestlers, and they're all looking for this one guy, rock and roll Rory Landell. Nobody knows where he is. He's just no one knows where he is, and he's just drinking his life away in some bar, which means we're all in trouble, right? Because our fate of the planet depends on this guy. So anyway, while he's day drinking, we have some astronomers who are the first to see that the aliens, Wrestletopians, have arrived. They've sent, an advance party of Wrestletopian spaceships have arrived with the intent of enclosing our entire planet within a steel cage, so that none of us can get out.
I laughed my ass off at that when I saw they appear to be building a steel cage. Where? Around the Earth.
Yeah,
so good.
I love that it's like scientists that we get to discover this through these scientists. It's really fun, and it's probably one of our favorite visuals. Is this page of Earth in a cage. It's actually Rory's manager Don Wong, who's living with his girlfriend, and he's retired, and he's actually he's doing pretty well. They happen to turn on TV, and this is another favorite scene of mine, but Manifest Destiny, the one true galactic champ, has arrived on the planet Earth, and how he makes his entrance is he finds this TV show, this morning magazine that's filming live from Times Square, like they do, hits the reporter on the head with a chair, and then cuts his own promo on live television to the planet, and he's ranting about the rock and roll Rory Landell, and there's only one galactic championship. And then because he rants for so long, we thought, well, okay, we got to cut to some things, and we're like, okay, let's cut to the actual invasion as it's happening. So you get to see all these wrestlers wrestling the Secret Service, and
Those were great because you get to see like moves being executed on the lawn, like someone's doing a back suplex. Another person has one of the officials in a camel clutch on the lawn. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a guy in a Boston Crab. I laughed hard at that. The time spent in illustrating specific, like, marquee wrestling moves, like when people think of WWE or WWF on television, you know, they think of the Boston Crab and the suplex and the camel clutch, and there they all are, right in a row.
Yeah, and there's a panel that I love where wrestlers are jumping off the Christ the Redeemer to like splash people on in Brazil.
One of my favorites is a guy. It looks like it's in Egypt, and he's giving the angle slam to a horse.
Yeah. We did that, and I'm like, I don't know if that's it. Why did we do that? But people like it. Like people think
so good.
Because
assaulting a horse is comedy. That's why.
Yeah.
Especially angle slamming one.
Yes.
He does. Wrestletopian doesn't know, right? He doesn't know what but so Rock and Roll Rory Landell is oblivious. He's just in this like cantina, and he's completely oblivious to what the damage he's caused, which is typical for Rory.
I have to say, this bit here he does with the bartender, this elderly lady bartender, and he's doing one of his promos, and she's like, what's her line here? Cerveza's still $2.50.
Yeah, he's trying to milk his fame, his former past fame for free beer, and it's not working. He's at a low point. But his befriended manager decides to hit the road, find Rory. He's not going to be that hard to find. He's just got to look in bars. On the way to doing that, he does run into Mini Macho, and Mini Macho is like had sort of the same goal. He's like, I got to find Rory, and we'll find out maybe a little bit why Mini Macho decides that he also wants to find Rory later, but then so Mini Macho and Don Wong here team up, and they and they go off to find Rory, but Rory is found first by some Wrestletopians who just happen to walk into this cantina, see Rory, and there's three of them. He puts up a good fight, but they're able to sort of render him unconscious, and that's about where the issue ends. It ends with a small, another quick flashback to Rory's youth, but that's about where we end. Is that cliffhanger of Rory getting knocked out, and that's it for issue 2.
Chris Sheehan, what did you think of issue number 2?
Oh, another really good issue here, and we're not just saying that, by the way. I want to make that clear here. This actually, I can speak for myself. This actually speaks to me quite a bit here, and I'm sure the other fellas are also on that same page here. I enjoyed seeing the backstory for Rory as a child there, saying that he is growing up in the business, and seeing that his father had a similar thing happen to him that happened to him with the title. He had been promised the belt, and at the last minute it was given to someone else, and we see that actually happened to Rory himself in the first issue. I thought that was really cool and a nice way to tie the two generations together. The steel cage scene was amazing. I mean, such a simple thing to do, but so effective. Going down wrestling lane here in intergalactic warfare. I mean, that's just perfect. Really, just another good time here. Like Mark said, I really liked him playing off his past fame with the bartender and how it didn't exactly bear fruit or cerveza for him. Being someone who's in the desert is kind of funny to see. Any story that actually takes place in Arizona, I'm okay with seeing that. So that's a good thing as well. Seeing he and Don break up their partnership, their managerial relationship, was we don't know these characters very well, but you still kind of felt it. We don't have a whole lot of reference besides what we've learned from the first several pages of the story, but it still felt like there was a powerful relationship that was kind of breaking down there. I thought that was very well done. So, absolutely nothing but good things to say about this one.
Bailey, Any other thoughts on issue number 2?
So I'm going to echo what Sheehan said, but I really enjoyed the bar brawl scene. So, Rory's further descent into obscurity. He's trying to use his fame to get a free drink, which is hilarious. And then he gets beat down by 3 Wrestletopians, and, they're their classic Russian heel, you know what I mean? Yeah. You got your big, tough luchador, and then you got your Rick Rude, Jesse Ventura hybrid come in, and they all attack him. And there's actually a move created here. Oh, so really? The large purple, listen to me, purple luchador grabs Rory by the feet, and front on, instead of slingshotting him, he literally throws him overhead through a table just by his ankles. And it is the most beautiful, beautiful move. I'd love to see that actually executed on somebody. Somebody kill a luchador and do that move. That's all I'll tell you.
Kill a luchador. We'll get Cesaro to do it.
No, it was fun.
Yeah. I was really into it. I was hooked. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. So what does happen next? Issue number 3.
Issue number 3. Yeah, so issue number 3, it's interesting. So Matt and I were like, okay, we're getting into what we feel is like the fuzzy middle of the story where I don't know, at least for me, I'm like, it can sometimes, be a little tricky. It's like I feel like you can come up with a great beginning and a great ending, and then it's like, well, how do you get there? But I think with issue 3 we did pretty darn well. It just really, what happens is it starts by going to Dick Drazen again. So if we remember in issue 1, Dick Drazen was Rock and Roll Rory Landell's promoter who screwed Rory over.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Because you alluded to before, he's clearly an analog for Vince McMahon, but you're setting this in Minnesota, and I'm wondering, were you a huge fan of the AWA? Are you poking at Vern Gagne as well?
Well, there's definitely some AWA tossed in here. There's no doubt.
Oh, yeah. So, yes. So, AWA was interesting. Like, growing up in Portland, I didn't get to see much of it. You got to see a little bit. It was weird. I think ESPN, when they were new and didn't have a lot of programming, would show it.
From the Showboat in Las Vegas.
Yeah, like late at night. I saw a few AWA stars come to Portland, but I think Matt was Matt grew up in suburbs of Chicago, and I think maybe he was more exposed to it, but he was also made the point, he's like, Minnesota was such a wrestling town and such a hotbed of wrestling.
I was going to say, there's at least 2 decades worth of every star that we can name that we just started rattling off came out of the AWA.
Yeah, trained there, or came out of there, or at least trained there even before they went somewhere else. And it was like, I think we originally had said it like Dick Drazen was going to be like a Texas promoter, and Matt was like, hey, we got to do, Minnesota, which is essentially, like you said, paying homage to the AWA, really. So we go to him, and he's just kind of like, chilling in his office when Manifest Destiny and his entourage knock down his door. And I know I keep saying this, but another kind of one of my favorite scenes is they decided, okay, Dick Drazen was the last known employer of Rock and Roll Roy Landell, so the Wrestletopians go to him and decide to put the squeeze on him to find Rory, and he's like, I haven't seen this bomb in years. So they're basically like literally like holding him up in the air and choking him, and while he's having the life choked out of him, Dick Drazen negotiates that he says, I could find Rory, but we should do a pay-per-view. You guys should wrestle, settle your differences on a live pay-per-view. And then he's negotiating like his take on the merchandising and everything, like while he's being choked out. It's really fun. But the Wrestletopians, so Manifest Destiny's entourage are like, yeah, okay, fine. If you can produce Rory, that's all the better. We'll wrestle live on pay-per-view, and we'll do this title unification bout.
I love the idea that the Wrestletopians know what Earth pay-per-view is. They're like, yeah, no, that's fine. It's all good.
It's a chance, to wrestle in front of the whole planet, and so they agree. But of course, where is Rory at this time? He had been kidnapped, captured by these 3 Wrestletopians who are sort of debating what to do about him. And here we get, with any good wrestling story, right? There's twists and turns, and so these three wrestlers that actually have Rory are debating: do we just bring him to Manifest Destiny, or do we turn him in to somebody else, who another party who we don't know, but apparently has an interest here in Rory. Before they're debating what to do, and then Mini Macho shows up. And these three Wrestletopians, at first they laugh, okay, because he's a wrestler, he's dwarfism, and he's small. Mini Macho kicks the shit out of these guys while Don Wong frees Rory Landell, who's tied to like a post, and having clobbered these three guys, they get in Don's car and they take off, and they're trying to figure out what to do, because Don, who does Rory's thinking for him, is trying to figure this out. He's like, they captured you, but they didn't bring you to Manifest Destiny, and they were talking about some other party, and I don't know, what do we do? They get the idea that maybe they should just drive to St. Paul, so Rory can wrestle Manifest Destiny, right? That's what's going to save the planet. It's been, I think, more or less established at this point. Like, Rory needs to show up and defend his Galactic Championship, or Earth is in peril. We have a fun scene where we get the entire world's reaction.
This is the best part of the book.
It is a fun one. Yeah, it's really kind of a non sequitur, but it's like all the leaders of the nations gather in Sweden.
Well, it's so funny, and I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was a news story one day where their whatever version of the Japanese Congress was gathered, and like a fight broke out, and like there was like a wild melee in this Japanese Congress. And I was thinking about that when I saw this. I don't know if like that had come to your mind, but like that's such a thing that happens occasionally. You have like a brawl break out.
It's really funny. One of my kids brought that up the other day, where it ends up. So they end up arguing. All these leaders of different nations are like, well, Rory's not showing up. Let's get some other wrestlers to face Manifest Destiny, and of course, each, like the leader of Iran wants it to be, the Iron Hussein, and
Ivan Kalishnikov. Which you might as well have called him Russian vodka guy.
Yeah. It's like
there's even the Rougeau brothers, the
French
Gaspard
connection.
Dubois and Pierre Renaud, the French-Canadian connection. I love that, but I did have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Who are the American Gigolos? Who are they based on?
That may just be nobody, right? Like, at that, we may have just said at that point, like, whatever, the American Gigolos is fine.
Yeah, I was thinking one of them might have been like maybe like Tony Atlas or something, or Rocky Johnson, but I couldn't figure out what you were going with the American.
I think maybe the Ron Simmons maybe is one of them. Not that I don't know that he ever had a gimmick like that ever, but that may have just been us just being like, American Gigolo sounds good.
Perfect.
Right?
I would pay money to see Ron Simmons as part of the American Gigolos.
Yeah,
just saying.
With the helmet, he has to have the gladiator helmet.
I think we just wanted an American delegate. I think part of maybe the joke was we wanted the American delegate to stand up, and he just like, those guys are all wusses, and then he just pulls up some American tag team that's just I don't know, just like in an odd contrast to these other tag teams, right? Like, very American.
That is very American. It's like, well, like we need something that stands up for America, right? How about sexy men? Perfect.
It's kind of it doesn't show us in a great light, but
no, it's great. I love it.
But then, it just descends into a brawl, which, we just thought it was funny. But my kid had said the same thing. I think I was thinking, like, we see these fights sometimes break out in like I don't know, it's like an Eastern European like parliaments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in Japan, and I saw it happen in England, where like their parliament just got into a fist fight one day, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it before for sure. I think it was it was, for some reason in my mind, I drum up images of like the Ukrainian parliament or and other stuff, which it's wild.
And then we are all screwed.
What's that?
And then you have the commentator as this brawl is going on, and someone's like leaping with a gavel, and you just go to this one panel. We are all screwed. I have a friend of mine who that should be his new Winfrey Bailey. That should be his new like icon. Actually, if I can get one of your artists to redraw that for me, but instead of saying we were all screwed, he says our stupid culture. That'd be even better.
We could work. I definitely have the art without the balloon, so we could probably figure it out. But, so then we cut back to so now it's Mini Macho, Rock and Roll Rory Landell, and his manager Don Wong just driving, and we get some backstory on Mini Macho, which is fun, and we sort of see his motivation for wanting to go along for the ride. Which is interesting. But we end the issue with another twist and turn, right? Because it's a wrestling story, but it's Dick Drazen alone in his like condo with a lady friend and trying to impress her, and some more Wrestletopians show up. And this time we reveal sort of like who this mysterious party is, who's also this mysterious Wrestletopian is who is also looking for Rory, and what it is it's a Wrestletopian traitor who sees this galactic unification bout as his chance to usurp Manifest Destiny. He wants to wrestle instead of Rory and steal the Wrestletopian galactic championship. Or he wants the title shot anyway, and so they put the screws to Drazen. And they make him an even better offer. Is like, okay, great. You're gonna make billions off a pay-per-view where Earth's fate hangs in the balance. But he's like, if I become Galactic Champ, you can just have all of Earth. You can be in charge of the whole thing. Like, I don't even care about it. So Drazen's like, oh, great. Like, imagine Vince McMahon. What would Vince McMahon do if he had a chance to become the supreme ruler of the planet, right? He'd probably take it. And so that's where we end. That's where issue 3 ends, is with the introduction of Sonny Jim Cooley, Manifest Destiny's #1 rival.
So I have to ask, so we're now 3 issues into this. We're going to start issue number 4 in just a second. Clearly a lot of allusions to 80s wrestling, things that led to 80s wrestling. Was there any conversation as you were developing the book and you were talking to the artists and developing the art for the book about allusions to the Attitude Era and the NWO? Because that's the one thing I think is missing from this, and not necessarily missing like it detracts from the book, but it's just something I didn't notice.
Yeah, it may be more. That's a good point. It's like most of this book is set in 1999, but the Wrestletopians, we really draw a lot from. They really are kind of caricatures of sort of older wrestlers. Like with Sonny Jim Cooley, you could definitely see Michael P.S. Hayes in there.
Yeah. That's what you were going for. I was wondering what that was. Definitely, exactly what it is.
What were you going for with Manifest Destiny? Because for me, he looks like Lord Humongous from Mad Max.
He is definitely, well, I mean, if you're reading his dialogue, the way he talks, definitely the Ultimate Warrior was a big influence.
We should have had more. Tell your artist next time when you do volume 2 of this, The Return, he needs more rainbow color coming out from behind him then.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a good point. I mean, I think, Matt and I we really love the wrestlers of maybe the 80s. And so a lot of, like you said, the Wrestletopians are really influenced a lot more. Like, there's Adrian Polaris, who is Manifest Destiny's sort of right-hand man who proves to be a traitor. He's working with Sonny Jim Cooley. He's probably kind of influenced by Adrian Street, and maybe a little bit by Adrian Adonis as well. But I think maybe it was our mutual love of those 80s stereotypes that won out a little bit over the newer, more Attitude Era wrestlers. It may have also been like when you're dealing with these characters that, like you said, some of them you don't get to know real well. The costumes and stuff were maybe a little bit more flamboyant. Like in the 80s is more when you had wrestlers walking around with like a parrot or a snake and a
right. Whereas, yeah, if you start to do the Attitude Era, everyone's wearing black or looking they're from some sort of like Latin gang, street gang, so not as colorful.
Yeah, like jeans and stuff,
right?
And it's it may have been the pageantry was a little bit more conducive to comic books if you're looking at the 80s, possibly.
All right.
I like the little callback at the end of this issue with the AWF megastars, the 1984 megastars. Cousin Orville in particular, I love his profile. I'll just take a second. It says, "Don't be fooled by his down-home demeanor. Beneath his overalls, Cousin Orville is a true wrestler's wrestler." And it says, "With a tenacity, he attributes his hard work and upbringing in Tennessee Hill country." And he talks about his feud with Kodiak Jack, which is the Bear, which was sparked at Noel Hell, which is a great pay-per-view name, by the way. But it sets up the feud. It says, "In a fit of rage, the volatile Grizzly smashed Orville's prized wash tub base, Merlene," which was just hilarious. I loved it.
Yes, good old Uncle Elmer, which I assume is either Uncle Elmer or Hillbilly Jim, I'm guessing is what that was.
He's the Hillbilly Jim analog, I think, or a combination of.
Yes, exactly. Precisely.
So good.
I personally favor Uncle Elmer, but then again, I like big fat guys who get married on Saturday night's main event. Sheehan, your thoughts on issue number 3?
Now, this is where, if we're doing a miniseries, like Ed had alluded to here, it's kind of the middle portion, obviously, but it's also where a lot of contemporary Big Two miniseries start to lull. If anybody's listened to any of my shows here, I always make reference to the Part 4 of 6 phenomenon, where as you get to the middle point and after the middle point, it's just like, why am I still reading this? Why can't we just get to the end? Here, we actually have that subverted here by the appearance of Cooley here. Throws a whole other wrench in here. We thought we were going to one match with Rory and Manifest Destiny. Here we have this whole new wrinkle brought in, which gives us things that we can explore over the course of the next couple of issues here, which makes this feel like it's not massively decompressed like so many of the stories we get today. So I really liked that. I really appreciated that. I wasn't expecting a new wrinkle. So when we got it, it was like, oh, okay, great. There's something we can explore here. So we still have our main focus going, but now we got this stuff on the side as well that's going to inevitably cross right into the main storyline. Really, really well done and kept me intrigued.
Absolutely. Ed, and I want to take a minute to tell you about one of our sponsors. I bet you use it because you write screenplays, you write stuff for video games, you're a professional writer, and I bet at least once or twice, if you haven't used it already, I bet you wish you had Grammarly to help you out with your writing. You ever hear of it, Ed?
Yes, I have seen many an advertisement for Grammarly. I'm very intrigued, and the only reason I haven't tried it is I'm a little intimidated to find out that Grammarly's better than me at writing. But you are right; I really should check it out.
Yeah, Grammarly.
Hey, Mark, tell us more.
I will, Chris Bailey. I will tell you more about Grammarly for you listeners of the Source Material Live podcast on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network, brought to you by W2M. Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people like Ed communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. So if you want to get a free 30 days of Grammarly, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. That's grammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free. God knows I could use Grammarly. You know how many times I do all the social media posting for all of the 900 podcasts I do in a week, and I leave a word out, and I go back to it, and I'm like, oh, well, that's not English. Like, that's embarrassing. I wish I had Grammarly to help me with that, to remember to put a word in there so that the sentence now makes sense.
I love that we've completely sold out now. This is great. We're the corporate Podsmen. That's great.
That's right. All right. Issue number 4, if you please, good sir.
Yeah. Okay. So now issue number 4. We always had in mind we're going to do 6 issues, and we know how this thing is going to end. Issue 4 and 5. So I did. We did feel confident in issue 3. I wasn't surprised by your reaction, because we did have a lot going on. Issue 4 and 5, I was a little more concerned about, but let's see how we did here. We start off with, at the end of the 3rd issue, there are actually 2 cliffhangers. One was that Rory, Mini Macho, and Don Wong were actually sort of, well, not driven off the road, but they were sort of run off the road by Wrestletopians. Their car is trashed, and they end up just sort of, well, as we'll see, it's not really happenstance, but they end up right in sort of this parking lot of a water park, which is, of course, it's abandoned because the planet's been invaded. So they go in the water park just kind of looking to see if they can find somebody who they're trying to find some new wheels, a new car. They're going in the water park to see, there's a few cars in the parking lot. They're trying to see if, maybe they can find somebody or find some keys or whatever. Of course, they're attacked by Wrestletopians in the water park. And it leads to a fun action sequence where they're defending themselves against wrestlers and being chased around. And then for some reason we thought it would be a good idea to have a double-page spread in which Rory and Mini Macho are wrestling Wrestletopians while going down a giant funnel slide. Why not? It was fun. They end up sort of being rescued by a group of wrestlers. And lo and behold, I didn't set this up very well, but among this group of wrestlers is an old flame of Rory's. When he walked out on this pay-per-view in issue 1, and he no-showed, he walked out on his girlfriend as well, the kind of love of his life, who is also a wrestler, valet-type person. She reemerges here. Her group is led by an older guy whom Don knows, because everybody in wrestling knows everybody, and they haven't seen each other in a long time, but they were friends once. And there's 2 other wrestlers who Derek and Daryl, who we affectionately call themselves 3D, even though there's only 2 of them.
Hot story there.
Yeah, we kind of get into that as so they have a camper, so now they're all headed towards the Twin Cities together, playing some video games, and at some point I think Rory's like, why the hell do you call yourselves 3D if there's 2 of you? And they explain their backstory, which is fun. They lost their 3rd partner, who became an accountant.
That's a great panel, by the way. Him sitting at the desk and he's just like, with the belt. That's my favorite. That's my favorite of this entire issue. Just no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good. Well, that's good. Then, of course, but Rory is forced to sort of try to. He's forced to talk to his former flame, which he hasn't seen since he walked out on, and so they have a really awkward moment. There's some, some character development happening there. But also in this issue, Rory realizes for the first time he hasn't been told that he is to wrestle Manifest Destiny on a pay-per-view, which by this time now is being advertised on TV. So we get to see sort of the commercial for Galactic, or what Dick Drazen calls Galacto Massacre, which will be the fate of the planet. Manifest Destiny versus Rory Lendell. And I love too that he also has because it's a pay-per-view, he has like an undercard, and he has all these matches, and he has like celebrity, a celebrity timekeeper, and just all this stuff that nobody could care about because we're worried about the fate of the planet. But But
I do want to see the match between the Great Habib and Georgia Overdrive, though. I will say that.
$7,000 squash challenge. It's just all this low ball like pay-per-view stuff. Dre's in the scene again with these Wrestletopian traders, Sonny Jim Cooley and his entourage. And they're anxious because we don't have Rory in our possession. They don't have Rory captured. They don't want Rory to make it to this match. They want Sonny Jim Cooley again to be able to wrestle instead for the belt. And Drazen tells him, hey, don't worry. It's all coming together. It's all coming to plan. We have a moment here where Derek and Daryl, 3D, kind of gum up the works. When they stop for gas, they end up running inside a strip club. As we find out, it's not quite the type of strip club that we think it is. But
let me tell you how this is so my sense of humor. In the panel where they come out, and the one guy is like, I guess, like Aquaman, and the other one's got like Rambo, with the bazooka and everything, and you see all the men aghast, and he's like, I've seen enough. And then the one guy, well, I paid for this ginger ale. I'm gonna finish it, dude. Tears. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, so this is for Matt and I being childish, right? It's like
so good. Naked Ambition.
Naked Ambition. It's a male. It ends up being a male review, which was not which is fine. We're not judging, but it's not what Derek and Daryl were hoping for.
I have my mutant power is that when I put things into the universe, a Hollywood intern hears it from wherever I am, wherever they are, and it becomes a reality. And so many a stupid thing I've said that came to fruition. Please, someone make this into like a Netflix movie. I need to see this scene on the screen.
Yeah,
me too.
Anything, right? Like you said, like what the Peacock. Anything. Anything. We'll take it.
Shutter. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Tubi TV.
That's right. I think Quibi got bought by Roku. There you go. Roku needs IP.
Content,
yes.
And you mentioned the ginger ale. It's funny. So Don Wong is actually one of the influences on him was classy Freddie Blassie,
right?
Who I think his by all accounts his weakness maybe was he was a real ladies' man, possibly to an extreme. But would not touch alcohol. So yeah, Don.
I like Dean Martin.
Yeah, Don Wong. He ordered ginger ale. He's going to finish it. He doesn't care what's going on. Rory and Linda get into it. Rory walks out on her again, and decides to go it on foot. Rory has a habit of sort of bailing when things get tough. If we haven't noticed by now, he hitches a ride who will take him close to the Twin Cities. Or closer, anyway. And meanwhile, back at the strip club, the rest of the gang...
Hang on, I know this was a background joke, and I don't know if you guys planned it or if your artist just thought this would be funny. Upcoming events, strip fight, book club, strip search, and I can't make out the bottom one, but that's funny.
Oh my gosh, I don't even... yeah, I might have been... Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, that's probably Kendall... Good. Let's see. This is issue 4. So Kendall Good was the artist on this, and he put that in there. Good for Kendall. I'll have to tell him we enjoyed that. So Rory has gone off on foot and hitched a ride, but everyone else is still at the strip club, and we've got Don Wong and P Macho and Derek and Daryl, Billy Mangrum, who's this old guy who Don recognizes, and then of course Linda. Linda is Rory's old flame. They're all still there, and they get waylaid. All of a sudden, these strippers reveal themselves to actually be Wrestletopians, and they put everybody in a sleeper hold. And that's where we stop with that. The last sort of wrinkle here, we end the issue with the reveal that Rory's hitched a ride with the trucker and fallen asleep, and they pull over at Trucker Norm's Travel Plaza. And it's revealed that even the trucker is a Wrestletopian. The trucker bails on his truck in the cab, leaving Rory in the cab. The doors lock, and Dick Drazen calls Rory on the CB of the truck. And that's where we end issue 4.
And of course, he says, "I'll be right back, brother."
Yeah, that's right. You know, that's how
Dun dun dun.
that's how you pick up on what's going on. Yep.
That's the lingo. Sheehan, what'd you think? Issue number 4.
I find it's interesting that we find that a lot of your past writing credits include video games here, because as we're reading this portion of the book here, I'm getting the feeling like we're building the party. You know, if anybody played, RPGs, Final Fantasy, stuff like that, it feels like we're still building the party. We're putting the cast together here. And I think it's very, very well done. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like it's taking too long to happen. It all feels very organic and natural. I'll echo what the fellas said here. I thought the bar scene was very, very funny. And really, really appreciated the ending as well here, where Rory's offered to be champion of the world for life if he'll just join the good guys. And when he tells him to stick it, he almost gets blowed up real good. So really, really good stuff here. And I like the love interest, his old valet. It really. I mean, of course, everything builds on itself here. So what we see here, the awkwardness between them here and the tension, is great for how we know the story's going to wind up at the end here. All the breadcrumbs are in place here, and it's building very, very well.
Bailey, did you have anything you wanted to add about issue number 4?
Oh, yeah. Listen, the cover to issue number 4 is brilliant. It looks like an old Coliseum video VHS, like Royal Rumble, box set. It looks fantastic. This is a T-shirt. I'd love to have that thing. And I also like that it's called Road Games. It sounds like an actual pay-per-view that we should have. We should have Road Games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, really dug that. One of the other things that I really enjoyed, and this is just some detail stuff, when they're playing the video game, they're playing like an N64 type thing, and it's AWF 99 upside your head. I thought that was hilarious. But inside the game, there's actually a character called Rock Hard Rick Laundrie, which looks like a combination of Hulk Hogan meets Steve Austin. He's got the middle finger gimmick going like crazy, and he says, "Chag nuts, Jason." I thought that was just so cool.
Yeah.
And of course, the stripper scene is just epic. This is, this is what we're reading this book for, just the fun and hilarity of what we can see. And I think you guys nailed issue 4, man. I want that T-shirt, by the way.
Oh.
And not to beat a dead horse, but boy, does this thing scream screenplay. Like it is clear that this thing wants to be a movie so badly.
Oh, good. All right. Well, good. I think that's good. We we try. I mean, it is our first. This whole series is our first attempt at comic books. So we really tried. We were at this point. I had fallen a bit out of. I'd fallen mostly out of comic books. I would still read like occasional graphic novels and other things. Started reading a lot more comic books, and as a result, it still got way into kind of comic books as a result of doing this. And we were reading books, written by like writers on the art or craft of writing comic books. So we were really trying to make a good comic book. But heck, I mean, why wouldn't it make a good movie, right? Wrestlers from Outer Space, and
it's gold in them thar hills.
What more do you need there? I thought we did a pretty good job with issue 4. Like you said, you get to that fuzzy middle and are worried about like how to build up to your finish, and it is it was difficult. Like all the time working on the story, we had a hard time. We wanted to bring Linda, of course, back into his life. That was important. And it was hard for whatever reason to figure out exactly when to do it. And I think in previous drafts we had her coming in even later, just because so much needed to happen to Rory before they could reconnect. But I think we did pretty good here, getting her into issue 4. I wish she could have come earlier, but
all right.
It is what it is.
Yep, let's keep going. Issue number 5.
5. So now this might have been like the trickiest one, but because it's a 6-issue series, this is issue 5. But we start off, where we left off is that Rory Landell's locked inside the trucker's cab, can't get out, and Drazen's talking to him on the CB, and then Drazen makes him an offer first. He's like, look, I'm going to be in charge of the planet. If you no-show, I'm in charge of the planet. I'll make you champion for life. And he even has like this belt under the seat, the same belt that Rory would have gotten that ill-fated night. He's like, I'll rule the world, champ, and you'll get what you want, right? And thankfully, Rory, we're not quite sure what Rory is. Well, actually, thankfully, Rory turns him down. Right, it's tempting, but Rory turns him down, and Drazen is not surprised. So the truck starts to move on its own and starts heading towards a propane refill station with Rory trapped inside. Meanwhile, back at the strip club, Linda ends up sort of helping to save the day, and the rest of the gang, so to speak, gets free of these sleeper holds, tosses some Wrestletopians around, and then escapes. Rory is trying to get out of this cab before it collides with the propane storage facility, and a nice moment of symbolism. He smashes this belt, picks up one of these gemstones, and cuts the window, and was able to break it and get out. And before there's an explosion. Now Rory is still he's by himself. He's still got this crummy belt that Drazen offered him, and he's got no choice but to wander off, try to find a rescue, highway something. Drazen, of course, and these Wrestletopian traders are unhappy, and the Wrestletopian traders are really unhappy with Drazen. They decide to send in the big guns. So we have this female wrestler dominatrix, and sort of this beast of a wrestler who maybe reminds you a little bit of the Missing Link or George Animal Steel type, called Harem Scarum. And they decide, you two, you need to go and find Rory and finish him, because this is getting ridiculous. Rory's wandered off into the desert, and he so happens to meet a wrestler named Jay Warcloud. Now, Jay Warcloud has been talked about before. He's not totally coming out of left field. He's a little bit out of left field, but he's not totally, like Don Wong has been mentioned him a few times previously and said, look, I really think you need to find Jay Warcloud, and I think he'll get your head on straight. But Rory finds him on his own, and Jay Warcloud gives him a sandwich, an egg salad sandwich that's laced with peyote.
Because of course it is.
Yeah. and then
we have Homer's strip out episode.
So Rory is sort of forced to go through egomania, where he's on a trip, and he has to wrestle these different versions of himself, these different sort of like versions of his ego and his he has to face his issues in the squared circle. Let's say.
Okay, so I have to ask you: did you ever see Max Landis's "Wrestling Isn't Wrestling"? His short YouTube video.
I have not, actually. I did not even hear about it.
Okay. Well, then clearly you didn't inspire this bit. But he, if you ever get a chance to, when we're done recording here and you have 5 minutes, it's a fun video to watch. But basically, he tells the story of wrestling through Triple H's career, but all the wrestlers, except for like a handful, are played by women. And so there's all these different versions of Triple H played by this one gal. It's really funny, actually.
I will have to check it out. I did not know that he made that film.
The other thing this reminds me of is the Firefly Funhouse match from last year with John Cena and stupid Bray Wyatt.
Now I have worse about what is that gimmick? He's called himself.
The Fiend.
The Fiend. Yeah, it looks like I haven't seen it, but any of the vignettes or the segments, it looks like a really, really cool gimmick and
without getting off on a tangent, it started off okay enough, and it went quickly off the rails and got insanely stupid, and with him being burned alive.
That happens too. Right?
Yeah.
So he has to he's on a peyote trip where he has to wrestle different parts of himself in the squared circle and face some issues. And it's immediately after that he's found again by the rest of the group. Their car breaks down because it was just this old piece of crap camper they had been pushing too far. And they're left with they're sort of desperate, but they're left with this choice of whether or not to hop a northbound train to get to the Twin Cities in time for the pay-per-view, because time is of the essence. So it's what they do. They hop the train, and Linda gives Linda and Rory a little more time just to try to talk, and we can see some evidence of Rory sort of maturing a little bit after this experience he's had, but before that can go too far, everyone's attacked on this train by Wrestletopians, including Dominatrix and the very scary Harem Scarum. They're fighting for their lives, and we see here how one of these wrestlers, the Dominatrix, she's aiming for Rory, but she accidentally collides with Don Wong, who's an old guy, and they fall off the train together. That is the sort of the cliffhanger we end issue 5 on is Don falling off the train to the horror of Rory and the others.
One thing I will say about this issue, I like the stuff between Linda and Rory.
Definitely.
This is great cinematic stuff right here. Their relationship, and I think I'm willing to go with just about any movie, any silliness in a movie, any zaniness, as long as there's good, strong relationships at the heart of it, and that's what you have here with Linda and Rory. Sheehan, your thoughts?
A real good penultimate chapter here. I also had Firefly flashbacks when seeing Egomania here for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if that was in part inspired by this comic here. It was just so spot on. And just to echo Mark's sentiments there about the relationship between Rory and, oh boy, I just had her name. What is her name?
Linda.
There she is. Yes, seeing their relationship sort of be, still awkward, but more of an understanding between the two of them was really, really good. And totally, we're just setting up what the big climax is here, and it was really, really well done.
Bailey?
Oh, really fun. Someone seen Wayne's World 2, meeting the Indian in the desert, getting the, the whole flashback scenario here.
The Homer Trip Out episode on The Simpsons, the Indian going on a, what's the term?
Vision Quest?
Thank you. Yeah, the meet an Indian in a desert going on a Vision Quest thing. Yikes.
Yeah. No, you know what? Fun issue. And one thing I really noted here is that the artwork takes a distinct turn here, like in regards to a more polished, and the color seems like there's a different color process here as well.
Yeah.
So, there's...
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the word on that? What did you... I didn't check the artist on this issue.
So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to notice that. So the artist is again Kendall Good, who started with issue 4, and then he's doing issue 5. Yep. So he's maybe coming into his own a little bit with this sort of tricky world and concept and all these weird things at him. But the colorist is different. Like so, issues 1 through 3, we have the very talented Marissa Louise. Who has done a lot of work for major publishers, and she just got really, really busy. We found out it could be tricky to keep a team of freelancers together, even if everyone's paid their page rate. If DC calls and says, "Hey, I need you to do this," they kind of have to do it, right? Like it's DC. It's Matt and I are not DC or Marvel, but anyway. So 4th issue, we had Jason Lewis did a great job, and then for the 5th and 6th issues, we had our 3rd colorist, Gio Butler, come in. So it's a different. It's her first issue with the series, and she's doing the colors. Yeah,
I think it's probably the best coloring out of all the issues so far. So it's definitely on the uptick here for sure. So yeah, great job.
I will pass it along for sure. That was, I'm pleased to hear you talk about the pacing. It was difficult, like I said, Matt and I's first miniseries, and there are places you discover page space is precious, and there's so much you want to do, but you can only do so much. So it at times it felt rushed, but it was like, well, what else can we do, kind of thing. And we knew this nothing, that this thing wouldn't be perfect, but we just wanted it to be as good as it could be. As we get into issue 6.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay, so final issue, again, because Matt and I are really bad at planning this. It's like 47 pages long.
The double-sized spectacular.
It's a super mega extravaganza. But we kick off the Galacto Massacre pay-per-view. There's a big crowd in attendance. And we just thought it'd be funny, like, okay, if the pay-per-view is really like the fate of the planet, then so we cut to the announcers who welcome everybody, and you've got like President Clinton, he was president in 1999, so you've got like President Clinton in the front row, and you've got like the president of China, and the Pope is there, and because it's an important. So we thought that was funny, like all these like important people at a wrestling pay-per-view. And of course, the question is, like, there's still no sign of Rock and Roll Rory Landell, and we've got a main event coming up. Where is he? Well, we cut back to this train, and where his mentor, sort of father figure, has fallen off the train, thanks to the dominatrix, who's kind of inspired by China. She might be like the one wrestler that's modeled completely after sort of an Attitude Era personality. And Rory follows them, and finds out that Don is dead. Don, we have a moment here, tragedy. Don fell off the train and died. He's attacked. Yeah, it's a heavy moment for our series, but Dominatrix attacks him. She's a big gal. She's a muscular gal, so it's a pretty fair fight, I think. And Rory just, as he's so angry over Don's death, he manages to finally get the upper hand on her. He's distracted, though, when he sees that the train, which is now further down the tracks, is derailed. And, of course, it had Linda was on there, and Mini Macho, and Derek and Darrell were on there, Billy Mangrum were on there. So he's distracted for a moment, and at that moment, but he gets knocked out again. Second time it's happened to Rory, but I think it's pretty... He came about it pretty honestly, right? He's fighting. It happens in wrestling. So when he comes to, he is chained. He finds himself. He's chained to the wall of this like barn in the middle of nowhere. He's not really all that close to the Twin Cities. There's a horde of Wrestletopians guarding him, and it kind of looks like game over. And this is also when he finds out that Billy Mangrum, so this wrestler who's an old friend of Don's, and his girlfriend Linda had betrayed him. There's the double cross. They were working for Drazen. They were kind of his insurance policy should Rory really not take his offer to no show. Linda feels pretty bad about it, but Rory doesn't want to hear it, and so they take off in like this little Wrestletopian spaceship. It might be kind of hard to see, but as they take off in this little, Linda and Billy Mangrum and a Wrestletopian who's piloting them, we can if you pay attention, you can just sort of see Mini Macho hiding as a stowaway on this little Wrestletopian craft, which is headed towards the pay-per-view. Now, meanwhile, it's just Rory chained up under guard, kind of looks like game over. We hear these heavy footsteps, and the door is broken down, and it's this harem scarum. Again, this is giant of a wrestler, and kind of like he has this monster thing going, like a missing link. He's really angry. Everyone gets out of his way. He approaches Rory. Looks like he's maybe tear Rory's head off, but it turns out at the last moment we find out that he's changed allegiances. He's poorly treated by the other Wrestletopians, and we find out that he has come to actually rescue Rory along with Derek and Daryl of 3D, who have sort of befriended him and turned him babyface from heel. So this is Harem Scarum's face to heel turn. With Derek, along with Derek and Daryl, they wipe the floor with these Wrestletopians at the barn. They free Rory, and Rory's like, okay, we got to go to the pay-per-view. It's go time, brothers. Now we're back at the pay-per-view. Dick Drazen is talking to the crowd, and he's setting up the stage here that, Rory has no-showed through, he's a coward. He decided not to show, and he's about to introduce Sonny Jim Cooley when Mini Macho comes out. Mini Macho, remember, who hitched a ride ahead of Rory to St. Paul, and Mini Macho comes in to basically stall for time. He not throws Drazen out of the ring. He beats up some wrestlers in a comical fashion. He stole. Now, eventually, of course, there's only so much he can do. He's really good, but eventually the wrestlers here get him kind of under control, and now Drazen's about to introduce Sonny Jim Cooley when we hear Rock and Roll Rory's entrance music. Rock and Roll Rory Landell comes out. Gets a huge pop from the crowd. He's got a flag with the planet Earth on it, and he's signing autographs for like Nelson Mandela on his way to the ring. And he comes to the ring and he cuts a promo where, of course, instead of saying, well, I've just, been bumming around at casinos for 15 years, he tells everyone he was defending his galactic belt around the cosmos. He cuts a fun promo. Then it's time for Destiny's entrance. And then it's on, right? They have an actual match, which is, shades of some of these big WrestleMania matches you've seen in the past. Like the Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior was actually turned out to be a pretty good match.
It's one of my favorites from back then.
Yeah.
I know exactly where I was. I know who I was watching it with. My friend Dave's the confirmation, I think it was, and we had a whole bunch of people in his basement. It is probably, I think, between that and the Attitude Era, that probably marks the end of the height of my fandom as a kid until I would become a huge fan again during the Steve Austin era.
Yeah, and of course, we mentioned WrestleMania 3, which I think was Andre and Hogan, if I'm correct.
You are.
Yes, that's correct.
So anyway, it's shades of one of these matches where you have two big guys going at it, and Rory fights valiantly, but I guess we're not too worried about spoilers here. But he fights valiantly, and at one point he's put in a sleeper hold by Manifest Destiny, and this is a fun where he starts to sort of fall unconscious, and we just cut to this scene where he gets to see Don Wong one last time. And, we don't really know if this is just all in his head or if it's something else, but he and Don are, in a park bench in an idyllic park with white suits, and they're talking. And Rory gets a chance to kind of say everything he wishes he would have said to Don, which is, I'm sorry for being such a huge pain in the ass and not listening and all this stuff. And Rory tells him, look, man, I'm proud of you. I always have been. You're gonna do. And Rory actually then also shows some growth here by saying, hey, I need some help. And Don's like, hey, man, it's on its way. So we go back to the match
because Mickey loves you.
Yeah, Mickey loves you, exactly. A touching a moment for our story. We go back to the match, and then Rory, is inspired by this interlude, hulks out, so to speak, breaks the sleeper hold. The match keeps going. It looks good for Rory, but we have what astute wrestling fans might consider a dusty finish, where the whole issue long we've been making a thing of Rock and Roll Rory Landell's bad knee, and here it comes back to haunt him. But whereas because of the bad knee, he ends up being pinned by Destiny, who wins the match, and it sets up a fun line. One of the announcers says, "This is truly one of the greatest tragedies in the history of professional wrestling." The whole planet is now under Wrestletopian rule, and that's his response. we're not quite done. The match is done, but action's not quite done because Sonny Jim Cooley has decided to take matters in his own hands. He slides into the ring with another traitor, and they ambush Destiny, start beating the snot out of him. Rory Landell returns to the ring then to kind of help help Destiny, and he himself starts getting stomped on by these two. So Linda comes to his aid. Linda takes one of these guys out, but she's left alone here with Sonny Jim Cooley, which is not good. So she's running, buying some time. She does get in a good lick or two. Things don't look so good, and then Manifest Destiny pops up again. He's recovered, and now Sonny Jim Cooley's he's got Sonny Jim Cooley in his sights. Sonny Jim Cooley tries to kind of back away, slink away, but so Rory is this time sort of recovered. So now we have this moment of Rory and Destiny working together to take out Cooley and basically defeat him in the ring, and then of course Dick Drazen has to get his just desserts, right? He shows up and tries to sort of like smooth things over, but Rory's not having any of it. So we give Drazen a boogie bomb, his patented boogie bomb. So it's lights out for him, and then with Destiny. Because of Rory's actions were noble here, Destiny says, "Look, I won. I'm the Galactic Champion, but I'm just going to leave Earth alone, and I'll just, I'll leave you. I'll leave you guys alone."
Flash, you've saved your planet. Have a nice day. Yeah.
We have sort of our classic, he lost the world, gained his soul type of an ending, sure. Right? And then we're taken out by the announcers. I was like, okay, well, stay tuned for the weeks and months to come to find out what happens next. And then we end with kind of a nice touching moment where, the last time we saw Rory's mom, she was not in a good place. And we see her now. She's, of course, much older. She's still living in this trailer park, but she's in a much, much better place in life. And she's very proud of Rory. And we just end with a nice moment. This last page of the last issue, it's really it does a number of things. Like there's a touching moment with Rory's mom, but it's also like you see some kids that are just play wrestling, which like we all did, right? When we were for wrestling fans, when we were kids, we all did this when we were kids, and those three are actually you can't tell because of the style, but I had the artist Kendall do my cousins, who really were big wrestling fans, and it was my oldest cousin who passed away somewhat recently. So I just had him do my three cousins in the ring as when they were kids, and they would always I'd show up at their house and they would just immediately start pounding the shit out of each other. And I didn't have a brother, so I was like, oh my god, But and that's it. That's like page 45 or whatever. This. Really fun issue, but also sprawling, way too many pages issue, and that's it.
Well, I love this. Not just because Bailey forced me to have you on the show. It was great to have you. To give some insight into the book and get some history, which we're not always able to do. But I, as a wrestling fan, as a fan of comic books, as a fan of movies, this clicked all the boxes for me. I actually think it was very well told, well-structured story. I love the art in it. And this was a really fun read, and I really appreciate having you on to discuss it. Bailey and Chris Sheehan first. Go ahead and give your final thoughts.
Okie dokie. I thought the last issue was really, really well done. I liked it. And I'm saying well done a whole hell of a lot today, and I apologize for being repetitive, but I am a repetitive guy. I loved how we got the flashback or the flash sideways scene with Don and Rory in the middle of the third arm raise. You know, I mean, we've all seen that, especially during the the Hogan heyday here,
Yes.
where he's in a sleeper hold, and the arm goes up once, goes down, goes up twice, goes down, goes up the third time, and something's happening. He starts shaking, he starts hulking up. So I love that was how we went to that little side story there. It just totally fit the tone of wrestling. It used the comics language to really just produce a really fun scene. I also appreciated how the ending subverted my expectations here. This whole thing has been Rory's heroic journey here, and when he hulked up, and it felt like I was watching a wrestling match. He hulks up, I think, okay, it's done. He's going to win. It actually took me on that roller coaster as though I was watching a wrestling match on television. And he raises him up over his shoulders. The knee goes out again, which had been telegraphed the entire story though so far, but not in a way where we knew it was coming. It was very subtly done. It was just like, okay, his knee pops out. I think it popped out like twice. Once Don had to reset it, and then once Rory had to reset it when he was like sleeping in a sewer drain or something. So it was there. We knew about it, but it wasn't like there were no like flaming arrows pointing at it saying, hey, pay attention to this. So when it came back around, it felt organic. And that being his downfall, it really, really worked. Winning the aliens' respect at the end makes perfect sense here. He came back and he helped them. It was the WrestleMania 18 ending. We had the NWO come out to beat up Hogan. The Rock comes back out, and suddenly Hogan and Rock are pals and respect one another. Really, really a fun story. I'm really glad I finally had the chance to discuss this story. I've been waiting a couple of years to do it, so I'm happy to finally get it done.
That is awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, and I do remember, like when you said the name of your other podcast, I do remember, and I'm really glad that you got we got to connect with this one.
Absolutely. No, it means a lot.
But yeah, I mean, looking at it, I'm really happy with what we achieved. I can look at it and see flaws, of course, and I wish we would have had more time or devoted more time to certain characters for sure. But overall, it's a comedy sort of action series, and we wanted it to have some heart. So I think we got a pretty good a balance overall, and I think that the response we've gotten is really, really great. So I think
on the strength of this episode when it airs, you're going to get like a massive interest in it. And $7 Productions, The Rock's production company, will take notice because he'll make anything.
There you go.
If he's making Young Rock, he can make anything.
We got to get on Rock's vision board. We got to get on this.
There you go. Bailey, your final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, no, listen, Ed, this was a great trip. I mean, it literally, pays homage to parts and an era of wrestling that I think that our generation really love, and it spoke to all the strengths and the fun that makes up a great episode of wrestling. And I think you really showcased that within these 6 episodes. You know what I mean? 6 issues, I should say. But you know what? This is definitely something that I can see animated. I'm visioning it on Amazon Prime. I'm pre-booking this baby, and you're going to get done by the folks who are just doing Invincible right now. That's what I'm seeing for Invasion for Wrestletopia. Get on it, Amazon. There you go. That's what I got to say. But listen, man, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, man. That was very, very cool. And I've been badgering Mark to get some creators on here, and when we talked about doing this particular one, every single one of us were like, yeah, hell, I love that book, let's do it. You know what I mean? So we really, really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no kidding. We don't normally have guests on, but you were great to have, and I really appreciate you coming to do this today.
Thank you. It's really fun to talk with you guys about the comic, and I really appreciate you checking it out and having me on and going through all that work. I appreciate it.
Before we get into individual plugs, I do want to say that if you've enjoyed this podcast and you're saying, all right, well, I've listened to some podcasts now I need to listen to some music, go ahead and check out AmazonMusic.com. You can use our link at GetAmazonMusic.com/W2M Network. You get your free 30 days of Amazon Music. and you can stream all kinds of albums, all these artists that are on there. We've talked about many of them before on our various podcasts for free for 30 days. And if you like it, you keep the service. It's better than Spotify, better than Apple Music. You can stream all the music you want, almost anything you're looking for on Earth, and some things that aren't, are on AmazonMusic.com. It's great. We use it all the time. Jesse and I, our last podcast where we reviewed the Rob Zombie album, we actually, just for poop and giggles, we streamed parts of the very, very first Rob Zombie album, White Zombie album, I should say, right off of Amazon Music onto the podcast. It's fantastic. So go ahead and check out our link at getamazonmusic.com/W2M network in the description and get yourself a free 30 days of Amazon Music. All right, with that out of the way, finally, Ed, where can we find you on Twitter? Where can we, plug all the things so that people can find you and find more of what you're doing and how you interact with the world?
Yeah, well, let's see. I'll make it easy by saying you can find us on Twitter at SBP_comics. So that's like Suspicious Behavior Productions, SBP_comics, and keep you posted on what we're doing. And probably the biggest thing is May 11th. By all accounts, we should start a Kickstarter to put a trade in print, and that should be really fun. We're going to have some fun incentives. We mentioned the trading cards in the back of one of the comics. I think we're going to make some real trading cards, which will be really fun. And yeah, so you can follow us on Twitter if you can, or May 11th on Kickstarter.
You can also find this series, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast but you haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, it is available on Comixology. I think if you have a Comixology account, it's one of the ones that you can read for free without paying extra for it. So go ahead and do that. It's right there. The links, if you go to SVP_comics on Twitter, they actually have the link to the Comixology page for it. That's where I found it. So go ahead and give that a look. Chris Sheehan, what do you got going on in your world?
Oh, I got stuffs. You can find me over at chrisisoninfiniteearths.com or chrisandreggie.podbean.com. Still working on X-Lapsed, taking a look at the current year X-Men stuff after an extended break from the franchise. I think as of today, you just released episode 155, which was a horrible issue of Excalibur. So if you want to hear me talk about that, it's there for you. Also at chrisisoninfiniteearths.com, there's a series of articles I'm running called X-Lapsed Origins, where I'm taking a look at seminal moments in X-Men history that are still relevant to this day, some that have not been relevant until today. So right now focusing on some Alan Moore, Alan Davis, Captain Britain, talking about Otherworld, Saturnine, Mad Jim Jaspers, The Fury, stuff like that. Having a good time revisiting those classic stories and sharing them with folks potentially for the first time ever. So that's a good time. You can find me on Twitter at Ace Comics.
Chris Bailey.
Hey, you can find me getting my ass beat at work. Oh, wait a second. I mean here on Twitter at Charlton_hero. Where you can find me over here doing wrestling, and I'm currently preparing my wife to and my kids for an entire week without me with WrestleMania weekend vastly currently undergoing right now if we're not kayfabing our listeners here.
Yep,
so I'm in the process of watching everything that WrestleMania week brings me here. So an entire week without the family, chained to the old wrestling TV. So that's me. And you know what? We got lots of wrestling to endure this week, Mark. So this was probably going to be the very highlight, and I'm not even joking. Loved it.
All right, this past week we did a Damn You Hollywood for the Godzilla vs. Kong release in theaters and on HBO Max. We did not one but two source materials for accompanying comic books for that movie. We did GVK Kingdom Kong and then GVK Godzilla Dominion. And then myself and Sean Comer did an on-trial for Peter Jackson's King Kong, all 106 hours of it. Next week, like I said, we got all these WrestleMania shows to review. We'll be doing a review of NXT Stand and Deliver and NXT UK Prelude. We'll be doing another review for WrestleMania 37 and the Hall of Fame. Also on those same days, just because I had to shove them in somewhere, myself and Alexis Hayna will be reviewing Resident Alien Volume 1, Welcome to Earth. And then we'll be looking at the Alan Tudyk series on the Sci-Fi Channel that just wrapped up, Resident Alien, Season 1. Pat Mullen and I, because it's WrestleMania week, we are starting a new show. Everyone liked our boxing show so much that we're starting a wrestling one. So we're going to be reviewing every single one of the WrestleManias, starting with WrestleMania 1 on April 14th. And then to close up WrestleMania week, to celebrate the finality of it all, myself and Sean Comer will be doing an on-trial for the seminal cinematic classic. Everyone, it's right up there with Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon. It is a great visual film experience. Hulk Hogan's No Holds Barred, starring the late Tiny Lister Jr.
Yes, I saw that in theater opening weekend, baby, with four other people in the theater with me.
I saw it for however old I was when that came out for my birthday that year. That's what I wanted to do. I'm like, what do you want to do for your birthday, Mark? Little Mark. And I'm like, got to go see No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan. Duh.
Rip 'em, brother.
Rip 'em. All right, so that's it. Thanks again to Ed for coming on the show. Thanks to the Podsmen for hanging out with me tonight. This has been Source Material Live. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Enjoy WrestleMania.